If you grew up during the late 70s and early 80s, then this is a face that is certainly familiar to you. Yep, good old Willie Aames. For a while there, this guy just seemed to be everywhere. As a very young actor, Willie landed gigs on TV shows like Gunsmoke and The Odd Couple, but I'm betting that this show is where you probably saw Willie first. 8 is Enough told the story of the Bradford family, and Willie played middle son Tommy on that show, which ran on the ABC TV network for 5 seasons from 1977 to 1981. After that, Willie found himself in a couple of fairly memorable movies that hit the silver screen in 1982. The film that I remember best is Paradise with Phoebe Cates, primarily, well, because it has Phoebe Cates in it, but also because this movie came out shortly after The Blue Lagoon, and it felt somewhat derivative of that film. Willie also teamed up with Scott Baio to star in a little film called Zapped. I've got to admit that to this day I still haven't seen this movie, which also starred the Fall Guys' Heather Thomas. From what I understand, the movie isn't quite as raunchy as the poster would have you believe. Perhaps the best thing that came out of this movie was Willie's partnership with Scott Baio, because a couple of years later he and Scott would team up again, this time on the small screen. Charles in Charge ran for 5 seasons, first on CBS and then later as a first-run syndicated program. On that show, Willie starred as Charles' best friend, Buddy Lembeck. When the show transitioned to syndication, nearly the entire cast of the show was let go. Only Scott and Willie survived the transition from CBS to syndication. After Charles in Charge ended, there was a period of time where Willie really seemed to struggle to find work. However, around the mid-90s, Willie returned to the small screen in a direct-to-video superhero series called Bible Man. I have to believe that Willie was very passionate about this project. Despite his successes, he had also had numerous moments where he felt that he'd hit rock bottom. He struggled with alcoholism and feelings that his life just wasn't worth living. Willie talked about those low moments and so much more in an interview with Entertainment Tonight that the HuffPost reported on in 2010. In that interview, Willie talks about going from the high of making over $1 million a year to the lows of being homeless and sleeping in parks thinking, is this how my life really turns out? Well, the good news, folks, is the answer to that question is a resounding no. Because you see, around 2010, Willie decided to make a career change and get away from all of the chaos that can be the world of show business. So for a good part of the next decade, Willie became a cruise director. As you might imagine, vacationers love to visit with Willie on their cruises, and from everything that I can tell, Willie seemed to enjoy this change of career immensely. And it was while Willie was working as a cruise director that he finally connected with a person who had been a fan and he had been communicating with for years. And when they finally met, well, sparks flew, and before you knew it, the two of them had tied the knot. To this day, their union, which began with a fan letter to Willie decades ago, appears to be going strong. Over the past few years, it would seem that Willie has once again decided to dedicate more of his time to acting. If you're a fan of those Hallmark and Lifetime movies, you may have caught him in a handful of films like Dater's Handbook, Every Christmas Has a Story, and most recently in a film called Love on the Menu. And I have to say, it just feels right to turn on the TV and see a film with Willie in it. Yep, it's darn good to have the man back. Hey, you know what? I've got a couple more videos that I think you might really like. There they are. Pick one. I love both of them. You really can't go wrong. But before you go, I would appreciate it if you would consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. But most importantly, and as always, thank you so much for watching.